Why is everyone talking about Snowflake stock? The stock market seems to be excited about this company. In fact, it's one of Warren Buffett's holdings in his Berkshire Hathaway portfolio. It's a little surprising because Warren Buffett doesn't generally like to invest in these types of unprofitable growth stocks. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to go through a question and answer session that Snowflake had with Wall Street analysts and try and look at why everyone is talking about it. So what came out of this Q&A session that got investors talking about Snowflake stock? So let's get right into that. So the first question comes from JP Morgan, Mark Murphy, asking about any insights into the consumption patterns of Snowflake's clients around the holidays. And the CFO jumping on and say, well, there was nothing really noteworthy around the holidays. So everything was according to the way it has been, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing unusual to talk about. So it was what it was. All right. And then um, the the analyst from JP Morgan following up about the topic of generative artificial intelligence and large language models. Of course, this has been all the rage ever since ChatGPT launched in November, has grown to over 100 million users according to some estimates. And so everyone wants to know how your company is going to capitalize on this growth of generative AI and large language models. And I'll tell you, I follow over 100 companies, and nearly every company in their earnings calls, in their Q&A sessions, they go out of their way to highlight how they are going to benefit from the rise of artificial intelligence. So this has been a hot topic, a hot commodity. So let's see what Snowflake has to say in response to this question. And the CEO saying, like everybody else, we're all over it in terms of evaluating where these technologies can make a difference. We take a very pragmatic view. We do anticipate that Snowflake data will be a very, very big driver of large language models in conjunction with many other data sources. So they plan to participate in this industry. They're going to take a pragmatic view, and they anticipate that their data, Snowflake's data, is going to be a really big driver in these large language models. So it sounds like they plan on playing a critical role in the rise of large language models and artificial intelligence in general. And this could be a big reason why many investors have been talking about Snowflake stock. Artificial intelligence has been the top of mind for so many investors and so many analysts that this could be one reason that Snowflake has increased in popularity over the last few weeks and months. The next question coming from Kirk Matern from Evercore, asking about the underperformance of the international segment of Snowflake's business. Now, just to give you a kind of overview of what this analyst is asking about, in Snowflake's most recent quarter, in its Q4, it under delivered, right? It said it was going to reach a certain amount of revenue, and it hit a revenue target below that. And part of the reason was that it attributed that miss to the international segment. Sales in its international segment in the last 2 weeks, particularly in the quarter, came in way below what they were expecting. So Kirk wants to know a little bit more about that, a little more elaboration on why that was the case. And so the CFO jumping in and saying, I think it's customers being a little more cautious in their business and just buying what they need, buying as they consume. A number of customers, some of the larger customers who had consumed their full contract, but still had a contract in place, and just to bridge themselves rather than doing big deals right now. That's interesting. So, and I'll talk a little bit about what's been going on with enterprises in recent months and recent quarters, is a cost cutting campaign that's been more important than usual, right? organizations across the board have undertaken these kinds of cost-cutting campaigns, looking at where they can cut employee counts, where they can save on rent expense, where they can save on cloud computing expenses, just looking at all of their expenses and seeing where they can bring them down. Right? Because investors, the stock market has become more focused on profits and cash flow. That wasn't the case in 2020 and in 2021. In 2020 and 2021, investors were focused on growth. Show me growth. I want to see your company growing. And they weren't as interested in cash flows and profits and margins. Like those were more so on the back of people's minds, and that's where Snowflake stock reached levels at it was trading at $400 per share before it fell to 100, because investors were so excited about growth. They were looking for growth stocks, and Snowflake is one of the fastest growing stocks in the business. Now that's been a dramatic turnaround. Companies are focused on slashing costs, slashing expenses, and so it's to be understood that they would look to their spending with Snowflake and say, okay, let's just get what we need right now, and let's not commit to anything long term. Let's just get what we need right now and really evaluate our cost structure. We don't want to get into this long term spending agreement right now. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to evaluate our costs, trying getting the most out of what we have, and that's why we're going to reduce our spend. And of course, that's not good news for Snowflake. That's not good news for Snowflake, because that means that it's not getting as much visibility into its future, because its customers are reducing their spending. They're being more efficient with their spending, and overall that leads to lower spending levels. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. And I will end with this final question and answer here. And Kirk wants to follow up and asking about the telecom cloud and how Snowflake is adjusting to that. Right now, Snowflake's biggest clients are in the financial services and in the media industry. That's where Snowflake is generating the biggest amounts of revenue. And Kirk wants to know, what about the telecom cloud? Why aren't why isn't that one of your bigger areas? And, the CEO jumping in to answer saying, telecom is a really important segment for us. I mean, some of our largest customers are in that segment. They're running massive amounts of data, and they're very focused on managing the service experience, cross-selling very, very large customer bases. So it seems like this is an emerging industry for Snowflake. Some of their largest customers are from telco, but it's not, as an industry as a whole, it's not one of its larger segments. So it seems like Snowflake could make progress here if it could just get into more clients, it sounds like, because they've got some large customers that are spending a lot with Snowflake. So few customers spending a lot, and it looks like they need to expand their sales force, maybe deploy their sales force to attract more customers in this industry and spread out their customer base, and that way it can become a larger segment overall in its business revenue generation. So that's something to keep an eye out for. That's certainly something I'm going to be looking out for over the next few quarters, as Snowflake, of course, if you're not aware, one of Snowflake's longer term targets is to go from, right now in 2020, in their fiscal 2023, they generated roughly 2 billion in sales. Their goal is to generate 10 billion in sales over the next 5 or 6 fiscal years, so by their fiscal year 2029. So in order to achieve that target, I believe telco is going to be a critical element for them to onboard and really become a major player in that industry. Okay, so going through this Q&A session, I can kind of understand why investors have been talking about Snowflake stock. Most notably, of course, is the question from the analyst about artificial intelligence and how Snowflake plans to be one of the major data providers to that industry. to the large language models, to the artificial intelligence. And since that's been all the rage lately, I believe that part really is what got investors talking about Snowflake stock. In any case, this was informative for me going through this because I'm really interested in Snowflake stock, one of the faster growing stocks in the industry today, and with very big long-term growth ambitions. So that's all I've got for this video. I hope it was informative. And if you like this video, I'm going to add a couple videos at the end of this one that I think you'll enjoy. So please click on one of those. I'll see you over there.